Kwame had been away from his village for 5 long years. When he first left, he was just a young man with dreams bigger than the hills around his home. Life in the city had changed him. He had learned to dress smartly, speak confidently, and think in ways his people might not understand. But deep down, he was still that same boy from the red-soiled paths of Nsakana village. Now he was coming back home, not alone, but with Amina, the woman he hoped to make his wife. The road home was long and dusty. As the car moved through the narrow path lined with palm trees, Amina leaned out of the window, smiling at the small huts with thatched roofs and the sound of children playing by the roadside. She had grown up in the city all her life. The quietness of the village felt strange but peaceful to her. She looked at Kwame and said softly, "Your home is beautiful." Kwame smiled but did not say much. Inside, he was worried. His village elders were known for their strict traditions. They believed that marriage should follow certain customs, and every woman had to be introduced in a specific way. Amina was educated and modern. She wore jeans and liked to talk freely. Kwame feared the elders might not accept her. When they reached the edge of the village, people gathered quickly. Word spread fast. "Kwame is back from the city." Old women came out with smiles, and young boys ran behind the car, laughing. Mama Abina, Kwame's aunt who raised him since childhood, came out of her small compound, wiping her hands on her wrapper. Her face lit up when she saw him. "My son, you are home," she shouted. Kwame got out of the car and hugged her tightly. "It's good to see you, Mama Abina," he said. She looked at Amina, who was standing shyly beside the car. "And who is this beautiful woman?" she asked. Kwame froze for a moment. His heart beat fast. He remembered the stories his aunt once told him about how the elders rejected his cousin's wife for wearing modern clothes. He didn't want Amina to face that kind of shame. So, before thinking carefully, he said, "Mama, this is my mother from the city. She came to visit with me." Amina's eyes widened. She wanted to speak, but Kwame gave her a small shake of his head, a silent plea to stay quiet. Mama Abina, confused but respectful, nodded and said, "Ah, welcome, my sister. Please, you are welcome to Nsakana." She led them into the compound, still staring at Amina with surprise. As the sun began to set, the smell of roasted corn and fresh soup filled the air. Villagers came by to greet Kwame and his mother. They bowed, clapped their hands, and said words of welcome. Amina smiled politely, playing along though her heart was uneasy. Some of the older men whispered among themselves. Kwame's mother looks too young," one of them said. Another added, "City women don't age like us, maybe." They all laughed quietly. Inside the small room, Amina sat beside Kwame, whispering, "Why did you say I'm your mother? This is not right." Kwame sighed and rubbed his forehead. "Please, Amina, just for a short time. I want them to respect you before they know who you really are. The elders are very strict. I'm only trying to protect us." Amina looked at him sadly. "Protect us with lies?" she asked in a low voice. Kwame didn't answer. He just looked away. The next morning, the rooster crowed, and the village woke early. Amina came out to help Mama Abina prepare breakfast. She pounded yam and fetched water from the well, smiling politely at everyone who came around. The children liked her immediately. They called her Mama, just as Kwame had introduced her. When she laughed with them, her heart ached a little. It was strange to be called someone's mother when she was only a few years older than Kwame. As the day passed, more people came to greet the mother from the city. Some brought gifts of plantains and palm wine. The women praised her for her beauty and her calmness. "Kwame's mother is such a gentle woman," one of them said. "No wonder he turned out so fine." Kwame sat quietly, smiling but feeling guilty inside. He watched Amina pretend to be someone she was not. Each time she spoke, she chose her words carefully, afraid of saying something that would break the lie. He began to realize how heavy the secret was becoming. Later that evening, the village chief, Nana Kwaku, sent a message that he wanted to meet Kwame and his mother the next day. The moment Kwame heard that, his stomach tightened. The chief was a wise and observant man. He could read people easily. If he found out the truth, Kwame would be shamed before the entire village. That night, as the crickets sang outside, Amina sat beside Kwame under the moonlight. "Kwame," she said softly, "I love you, but I don't like this lie. Your people have welcomed me with warm hearts. They think I'm your mother, but what happens when they find out I'm not?" Kwame looked down at his hands. "I don't know," he said quietly. "I just didn't want them to reject you before knowing you." Amina touched his arm gently. "Then let them know me as I am. If they cannot accept me, at least we will know we told the truth." Kwame nodded slowly, but fear still filled his heart. He couldn't sleep that night. Every sound in the dark reminded him of the trouble his lie could cause. The next morning, they dressed neatly and walked to the chief's compound. Villagers followed behind, curious to see the city man and his mother. The chief sat on a wooden chair, his staff resting beside him. He welcomed them kindly, asking Amina questions about the city, her family, and her work. Amina answered carefully, always trying to sound older, but the chief's eyes studied her closely. At one point, he smiled and said, "You speak very young, madam. Are you sure you are Kwame's mother and not his wife?" The crowd laughed softly. Kwame felt his heart stop. Amina looked at him, then at the chief, her lips trembling. Before she could speak, Mama Abina came rushing in with a basket of fruit. "Ah, Nana, forgive me for being late," she said. "I went to the market." Then she turned to Kwame. "Your mother's name again, please? I didn't quite hear it well yesterday." Kwame's mouth went dry. He didn't know what to say. Amina looked down, and the silence grew heavy. The chief's eyes narrowed as he waited for an answer. In that moment, Kwame felt all his fear, shame, and love collide. He realized the lie had gone too far. The story that began as a small trick had turned into something much bigger, something that could destroy the respect he had earned. The chief looked at him quietly, then said, "Young man, the truth always finds its way home, just as you have." Kwame bowed his head. He knew then that the truth could not stay hidden for long. And even though the full story was yet to unfold, that moment marked the beginning of a lesson he would never forget. The wind rustled the trees, the villagers whispered, and Amina's eyes filled with both fear and hope. Something deep had begun, something that would change both of them forever. Amina could not believe what she had agreed to do. When Kwame told everyone she was his mother, she wanted to shout the truth. But the way he looked at her, nervous, pleading, made her stay quiet. She loved him deeply, and she did not want to embarrass him in front of his people. So she forced a smile and played along. The next morning, the whole village came to see the mother from the city. They brought gifts, baskets of yams, roasted corn, and palm wine. Children ran around her legs, laughing and calling her Mama. Amina smiled kindly, though her heart felt heavy. She bowed her head when people greeted her, just as Kwame told her to do. Everyone admired how polite and beautiful she was. "Kwame's mother is so young and full of grace," one woman whispered to another. "Maybe city life keeps people youthful." Another laughed softly. "Or maybe she uses those city creams we hear about." They all chuckled quietly. Amina heard their whispers, but she did not respond. She only smiled and helped Mama Abina prepare food in the kitchen. She pounded yam, fetched water, and even helped feed the goats. The women were surprised. "For a city woman, you work like someone who grew up here," they said. She smiled again, pretending not to be tired. Inside, Kwame watched her from a distance. He saw how hard she tried to fit in, how she spoke with kindness and patience. The villagers were impressed, but he noticed something else, the sadness behind her eyes. Every time someone called her Mama, she flinched a little, though she quickly hid it. Kwame felt guilty. He had told one small lie to protect her, but now the lie was growing bigger each day. In the afternoon, the village chief sent 2 young men to invite Kwame and his mother to a small feast at the community square. It was a way to welcome him back properly. When Amina heard about it, she smiled nervously. "What will I do if they ask questions about your childhood?" she whispered to Kwame. "I don't even know your mother's name." Kwame held her hands. "Just keep it simple," he said softly. "I will talk most of the time. You just nod and smile. They will not suspect anything." That evening, the square was filled with laughter, drums, and the smell of grilled meat. The fire crackled as people danced and sang. When Kwame and Amina arrived, everyone cheered. The chief welcomed them warmly, saying, "Kwame, our son, has returned from the city, and he has brought his beautiful mother with him. May the ancestors bless her." Amina bowed her head respectfully. The chief continued, "You must tell us, madam, how you raised such a fine young man." The crowd turned to her. Amina's heart began to race. She looked at Kwame, who gave her an encouraging nod. "Ah," she began slowly, choosing her words carefully, "Kwame has always been a good boy. Even as a child, he was strong and clever." The villagers clapped and cheered. "Did he give you trouble when he was small?" one of the women asked with a laugh. Amina forced a smile. "Sometimes," she said, "but not too much. He liked to play football more than fetch water." Everyone laughed loudly, and Kwame laughed too, though he felt a strange pain inside. She was doing her best, but he knew she was uncomfortable pretending to be something she was not. As the night went on, the villagers danced around the fire. Amina sat quietly beside Mama Abina, who talked happily about old village stories. "My sister," Mama Abina said, "your son has made us proud. You must stay longer before you return to the city." Amina smiled weakly. "I will try," she said softly. Later, when the crowd had gone and the fire was dying out, Amina and Kwame walked back to the compound under the moonlight. The air was cool, and the frogs croaked near the river. Amina finally spoke, her voice trembling. "Kwame, I don't like this. Everyone believes I'm your mother. It feels wrong." Kwame sighed deeply. "I know, Amina. But just a few more days. After the chief's ceremony, I'll tell them the truth." Amina stopped walking and looked at him. "And what if they hate me for it? What if they think I was mocking them?" He had no answer. He just looked down at the ground. The moonlight shone on his face, showing the worry in his eyes. The next morning, the village buzzed with gossip. Two young men who had attended the feast were talking loudly near the well. "Kwame's mother is too young to have him," one said. "Maybe she is not really his mother." The other laughed. "Ah, don't say that. But truly, she looks like his wife." By afternoon, almost everyone had heard the rumor. Some believed it, others didn't. When Mama Abina heard it, she scolded them. "Nonsense. That woman is Kwame's mother. I saw the way she looks at him with love." The villagers nodded, but doubt still lingered. Amina could feel the change. People still greeted her politely, but she noticed the curious glances. The women started asking small questions. "How many children do you have? Where is your husband now? When did you have Kwame?" Each question made her heart beat faster. She answered carefully, hoping not to say something that didn't make sense. At night, she sat outside the hut, looking at the stars. She thought about her own mother, who had taught her that truth is like the sun. You can cover it for a while, but it always finds a way to shine. Amina closed her eyes and whispered a small prayer. Kwame came out and sat beside her. "You're quiet tonight," he said softly. "I'm thinking," she replied. "I feel like I'm living someone else's life." He looked at her with regret. "I never meant to hurt you, Amina. I just wanted to make things easier. I thought if the villagers respected you as my mother, they would not judge you harshly." Amina turned to him, her voice gentle but firm. "Love built on lies cannot stand, Kwame. Maybe they will not accept me, but at least I will know I was honest." Kwame said nothing. He just looked into the distance. The village was quiet except for the sound of drums far away. He knew she was right. The following days grew harder. Every time Amina smiled, she felt trapped between truth and loyalty. She began to avoid long conversations, fearing that one wrong word might reveal everything. The children still called her Mama, and she still laughed with them, but inside, she was tired. One afternoon, while she was fetching water at the well, an old woman approached her. The woman's name was Nana Ajoa, one of the oldest in the village. She looked at Amina kindly but with sharp eyes. "My child," she said softly, "you have a good heart. But I have lived long enough to see when a story is not true. You are not Kwame's mother, are you?" Amina's hands trembled. She didn't know what to say. Before she could speak, the old woman smiled gently. "Don't be afraid. I will not tell anyone. But remember, lies are like a heavy pot. The longer you carry it, the harder it becomes." Then she turned and walked away slowly. Amina stood still, tears in her eyes. She knew the lie was breaking her spirit. That night, she told Kwame what had happened. He was silent for a long time. Finally, he said, "Then maybe it's time we stop pretending." Amina nodded, feeling both scared and relieved. She didn't know how the truth would come out, but she knew it couldn't stay hidden forever. The whispers in the village were growing louder, and soon everything would change. The morning was bright and peaceful when Mama Abina returned from her trip. She had gone to a nearby village for a funeral and had been away for almost a week. Everyone in Sakana village loved her. She was kind, funny, and full of life. When she came home, she expected to find her compound quiet and calm. But instead, she found many people sitting outside, talking and laughing. As she got closer, she saw Kwame sitting with a young woman, Amina. The two were peeling cassava together, smiling softly at each other. Mama Abina stopped for a moment, surprised. The woman was beautiful, her skin smooth, her smile warm, and her eyes gentle. But there was something strange. When Mama Abina left the village, Kwame had said he was bringing his mother from the city. The woman before her looked far too young. She called out, "Kwame!" He jumped up quickly, surprised to see her. "Mama Abina! You are back," he said, hurrying to hug her. She laughed, hugging him tightly. "My son, you look healthy. The city has treated you well." Then she turned to Amina. "And you must be the one I heard about, Kwame's mother from the city." Amina froze. Her hands shook as she tried to smile. "Yes. I mean," she stammered, but her voice faded. Kwame quickly stepped forward. "Yes, Mama, this is her. This is my mother." Mama Abina blinked, then looked at him carefully. "Your mother," she repeated slowly. "Kwame, your mother, God rest her soul, died many years ago. And I was there to bury her." Kwame laughed nervously. "Ah, Mama, I meant she is like a mother to me, you know, someone who cares for me in the city." Mama Abina raised her eyebrow. The villagers sitting nearby began to whisper among themselves. The quiet murmur grew louder. A few people exchanged curious looks. Something was not right, and everyone could feel it. Amina could no longer bear it. Her heart pounded so hard she thought it might burst. She stood up quickly and said, "Please, I can't do this anymore." Her voice shook, and tears filled her eyes. "I am not his mother. I am his fiancée." The whole place went silent. Even the wind seemed to stop blowing. The only sound was a child's giggle in the distance. Mama Abina stared at her, speechless. "What did you say?" she asked in a low, firm voice. Amina wiped her tears and said softly, "He asked me to pretend, because he was afraid you all would not accept me." Gasps rose from the crowd. One of the older men stood up, shaking his head. "Pretend? You mean the young man lied to the whole village?" Kwame tried to speak. "Please, elders, it was not meant to hurt anyone. I only wanted to make sure she was treated with respect." But the people were already angry. The village elders, who had been sitting under a tree nearby, walked over slowly. The oldest among them, Nana Kwaku, frowned deeply. "Kwame," he said, "you came back to your home with deceit. You made us believe a lie. That is not how a man of this village behaves." Kwame lowered his head in shame. "I am sorry, Nana. I was afraid." "Afraid of what?" the elder asked. Kwame looked at Amina and then at the ground. "Afraid that you would not accept her because she is from the city." The elder sighed. "You dishonored your people, your family, and even this woman you say you love. Love cannot live in a lie." Amina was crying quietly. She tried to speak, but her voice broke. "I only did what he asked. I thought it was love. But now everyone hates me." She turned and ran down the path toward the forest. The villagers called out, but she did not stop. Kwame wanted to go after her, but the elders stopped him. "Let her be," said Nana Kwaku. "You have done enough damage for one day." Mama Abina looked at him with disappointment in her eyes. "Kwame, I raised you better than this. I taught you that truth is the strongest foundation a man can have. Why would you shame me in front of our people? Kwame fell to his knees. Mama, please, forgive me. I didn't mean to shame you. But Mama Abina turned away. I cannot forgive what I do not understand, she said quietly and walked into her hut. As the sun began to set, the news spread through the village like fire. Everyone was talking about it. The same people who once praised Amina now spoke badly of her. How could she agree to such a thing? One woman said. She fooled all of us. Another added, city women bring trouble. This is why our sons should marry from here. Kwame sat alone outside, staring at the road Amina had taken. His heart was heavy. He had never meant for things to go this far. He thought it was a harmless lie, just something small to make life easier. But now, he saw how one lie could destroy everything. Later that night, he heard footsteps behind him. It was Nana Kwaku again. The old man sat beside him silently for a moment before speaking. You are young, Kwame, he said softly. You will make mistakes. But you must learn from them. You cannot build love with fear. Kwame nodded slowly, tears in his eyes. I only wanted to protect her, he whispered. Then protect her with truth, said the elder. The truth may hurt for a moment, but lies destroy forever. The next morning, Kwame went searching for Amina. He walked through the forest paths, calling her name. He checked by the river and near the church where travelers often rested. Finally, he found her sitting on a rock near the water, her head buried in her hands. When she saw him, she turned away. Please go, she said. I can't face you or your people again. Kwame walked closer, his voice breaking. Amina, I am sorry. I ruined everything. I thought I was protecting you, but I only hurt you. Amina looked up, her eyes red from crying. Kwame, you made me lie to kind people who showed me love. I felt ashamed of every word I spoke. How can I ever walk back into that village? Kwame knelt before her. Let me make things right. I will tell them the truth myself. I will beg for your forgiveness and theirs. She shook her head slowly. They won't forgive easily. The wound is deep. Kwame reached for her hand. Then I will not stop trying. They sat there quietly, the sound of the river flowing beside them. For a long time, neither spoke. Amina looked at the water and whispered, I wanted to belong, Kwame. But now I feel like a stranger. Kwame's eyes filled with tears. Then let me help you belong. Not through lies, but through truth. When they finally stood up, the sun was rising. The light touched the trees, and birds began to sing again. Something inside both of them had changed. The pain was still there, but beneath it was a small spark of hope. Back in the village, Mama Abina sat outside, her heart torn. She was angry, but she also missed her nephew. She prayed silently that he would come back and face what he had done. The elders gathered under the tree once more, waiting. They all knew the truth had broken the peace of the village. But they also knew that every mistake was a chance to learn. When Kwame and Amina finally walked back together, holding hands, the villagers stopped what they were doing and watched. Some whispered, some frowned, but others simply nodded quietly. Kwame's head was bowed, but his steps were firm. He knew the road to forgiveness would be long. Yet for the first time, he felt light, because at last, he had stopped pretending. The next few days were the hardest in Kwame's life. The village was quiet, but the silence was heavy. People no longer greeted him the same way. Some ignored him, others looked at him with disappointment. Even the children who once followed him around now ran off when they saw him coming. He had become the man who lied to everyone, the man who made a fool of the village. Mama Abina hardly spoke to him. When she did, her voice was cold and short. You brought shame to my home, she said one evening while washing dishes. You did not just lie to us, Kwame. You lied to a woman who loved you. Kwame tried to explain himself, but she shook her head. There is no explanation for pride, my son. You wanted to look wise in front of your people, and in the end, you became a fool. Her words cut him deeply. That night, Kwame could not sleep. He sat outside, staring at the stars. The crickets sang in the grass, and the moonlight spread softly over the huts. Everything around him looked peaceful, but his heart was full of pain. He thought about Amina, her smile, her gentle voice, the way she worked hard to please his people even while living a lie. She didn't deserve the shame he had brought upon her. He realized then that he had tested the wrong person. He had tested Amina's love, but it was his own heart that had failed the test. He had wanted to see if she could be humble, but he had been the one full of pride. He had wanted to protect her from rejection, but instead, he had made her the target of it. The next morning, Kwame made up his mind. He would go and find her. He packed a small bag and began his journey to the nearby town where her cousin lived. The road was long and dusty, but he did not care. The sun was hot, his feet hurt, but his heart pushed him forward. When he reached the town, he asked around until he found her cousin's house. It was a small brick house with a blue door and a mango tree in front. He knocked softly. Amina's cousin, a tall young woman named Zura, opened the door. She frowned when she saw him. "What do you want, Kwame?" she asked sharply. "Haven't you done enough?" "I came to see Amina," he said quietly. "Please, I just want to talk to her." Zura crossed her arms. "You should leave her alone. She has cried enough because of you." "Please," Kwame begged. "Just 1 minute. I won't leave until I see her." Zura sighed and went inside. A few minutes later, Amina came out. She looked tired, her eyes red from crying, but she still carried the same calm beauty he had always loved. When she saw him, she stopped a few steps away. "Why are you here, Kwame?" she asked softly. "Haven't you embarrassed me enough?" Kwame lowered his head. "I came to say I'm sorry." Amina crossed her arms, looking away. "Sorry? That word cannot fix everything. You lied to your people. You made me pretend to be someone I'm not. Do you know how small I felt when they found out?" "I know," he said quickly. "I know, Amina. I have thought about it every day. I was foolish. I thought I was protecting you, but I was really protecting my own pride. I was afraid the elders would reject you, and I didn't trust their hearts, or yours." Amina looked at him for a long time, saying nothing. Then she sighed. "Kwame, I loved you because I thought you were brave. But that day, I saw fear in you. You feared your people more than you trusted me." Her words hit him harder than any slap. He took a deep breath and stepped closer. "You are right. I was afraid. But I've learned my lesson. I don't care what the village says anymore. I only care about you. I can live with their anger, but I cannot live with your silence." Amina's eyes softened slightly, but she still looked unsure. "And what do you want from me now?" she asked. "I want forgiveness," he said simply. "I want a chance to prove that I've changed. I will go back to the village and tell everyone the truth myself. I'll tell them it was my idea, not yours. You did nothing wrong." She stared at him. "Do you think that will make them forgive you?" "I don't know," he said honestly. "But I know it's the right thing to do." For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The wind rustled the mango leaves above them, and a bird chirped softly in the distance. Finally, Amina said, "You hurt me deeply, Kwame. But I can see that you mean what you say. Still, forgiveness doesn't happen in one day. You must show me you have truly changed." Kwame nodded. "I will do whatever it takes." She looked at him again, and for the first time since that terrible day, she smiled faintly. "Then start by being honest, with yourself and with your people." Kwame felt a weight lift from his chest. "Thank you, Amina. You will never regret forgiving me." "I haven't forgiven you yet," she said, half smiling. "But maybe someday I will." He left her house with a strange mix of pain and hope. The road back to the village felt shorter this time, even though the sun was still hot. Along the way, he thought about everything he would say to the elders. He no longer feared their judgment. He wanted to face the truth head-on. When he reached the village, people were surprised to see him again. Some whispered, "He has returned." Others turned away. But Kwame walked straight to the big tree where the elders usually gathered. Nana Kwaku was there, along with Mama Abina and a few others. He bowed before them. "I have come to confess," he said. "What happened was my fault. I made Amina lie. She only did it because I asked her to. I was proud, and I was afraid. I did not trust the wisdom of my elders or the love of my people. Please, do not blame her. Blame me." The elders listened quietly. When he finished, Nana Kwaku spoke. "Kwame, truth spoken late is still better than a lie carried long. You have done wrong, but you are brave to face it." Mama Abina's eyes filled with tears. "My son," she said softly, "you have learned the hardest lesson. Pride destroys faster than fire." Kwame nodded humbly. "I know, Mama. I will never let pride stand between me and love again." Word spread quickly through the village that Kwame had confessed. Some people still judged him, but others began to respect him again for admitting his fault. A few days later, Amina returned to the village, this time walking freely and proudly. When she passed, people greeted her politely. The whispers had stopped. That evening, Kwame met her by the same river where he had once found her crying. The sunset painted the sky orange and gold. He looked at her and said, "You taught me something, Amina. Love is not a test. It is trust." She smiled softly. "And truth is the only thing that keeps it alive." They stood there in silence, watching the water flow. It was as if the river was carrying away all the pain, leaving behind only calmness and understanding. For the first time in a long while, Kwame felt peace. He knew he could not change the past, but he could choose a better path forward. And he knew one thing for sure: he would never again let pride speak louder than love. Several weeks passed after the painful events that shook Nsakana village. Life slowly returned to normal, but the memory of Kwame's lie still lingered in the minds of many. The villagers spoke less about it as time went by, yet the story remained like a scar on the village's pride. The rains had come and gone, the fields were green again, and people had begun to smile more. But deep down, they all wondered whether Kwame and Amina would ever return. Kwame spent those weeks in the city, working and thinking. He had changed. He no longer cared about how people saw him. He cared only about being truthful and kind. He visited Amina often, helping her with her small business, learning patience and humility from her. Slowly, their hearts began to heal. She saw the difference in him, the way he listened more, the way he spoke with care, and the way he no longer tried to hide behind pride. One sunny morning, as they sat outside her cousin's home, Kwame turned to her and said quietly, "Amina, I want to go back to the village. But not alone. I want to go back with you, properly this time. I want everyone to know the truth. I want them to know who you really are." Amina looked at him carefully. "Are you sure you're ready for that?" she asked. "Some people might still remember what happened." Kwame smiled softly. "They will remember, yes. But this time, they will remember the truth. I have nothing left to hide." She thought for a moment, then nodded. "If that is what you want, then I will go with you." The next morning, they packed their bags and took a bus heading toward Nsakana village. The journey felt different this time, not rushed, not secretive, but peaceful. The road was the same, lined with palm trees and small farms, but the feeling in Kwame's heart was new. He felt lighter, freer. When they reached the edge of the village, children saw them first. "Kwame is back!" they shouted, running ahead to tell the others. Soon, people began to gather. Some came out of curiosity, others out of kindness. They all remembered the last time he had returned, and the chaos that followed. This time, Kwame stepped out of the car with his head held high. Amina stood beside him, her hand gently resting in his. There was no pretending, no lies, just truth. Mama Abina was sitting outside her hut when she saw them. She did not rush to meet them. She just looked at them quietly for a long moment. Then, slowly, she stood up and walked toward them. The villagers fell silent, watching. Kwame bowed his head and said, "Mama, I have come to ask for your blessing. Amina and I are together again. I know I have done wrong, but I want to make things right." Mama Abina looked at Amina. "And you, my daughter, you came back too. After all that pain, you still came." Amina nodded. "Yes, Mama. Because love is not about running away. It's about forgiveness and truth." Mama Abina's eyes softened. She reached out and took Amina's hand. "You are a strong woman," she said. "Stronger than I ever knew." Then she turned to Kwame. "You are lucky to have her. Do not make the same mistake again." "I won't, Mama," he said quietly. "Never again." The villagers murmured among themselves, surprised by the calmness of the moment. They had expected shouting or anger, but instead they saw forgiveness. One of the elders stepped forward. "Kwame," he said, "you have faced your shame and spoken the truth. That takes courage. The past cannot be erased, but the heart can be cleaned." Kwame nodded humbly. "Thank you, elder. I will carry that lesson all my life." The elder smiled slightly. "Then let us welcome your woman properly this time." The women clapped, and the men nodded. Someone brought out chairs and water, and soon the air filled with warmth again. Children laughed, goats bleated, and the village began to feel alive. Later that evening, a small ceremony was held. It was simple but full of joy. The villagers cooked food, sang songs, and danced under the stars. Kwame and Amina sat together, holding hands. Mama Abina stood before them and gave her blessing. "May your home be filled with honesty and peace," she said. "May you never forget what lies cost you. And may truth always guide your love." Everyone cheered. Amina smiled through tears. For the first time since she arrived in the village, she felt accepted, not as someone's pretend mother, but as herself. Kwame stood up to speak. "My people," he began, "I thank you all for forgiving me. I lied because I was afraid. I thought the truth would bring rejection, but I see now that lies bring more pain than truth ever could. Amina is my fiancée, the woman I love, and I will honor her with honesty for the rest of my life." The villagers clapped and shouted in approval. Even those who had once mocked him smiled now. They saw a young man who had fallen but learned to rise again. When the dancing started, Mama Abina joined in, laughing like she used to. She even pulled Amina to her feet. "Come, my daughter," she said with a grin. "Let us dance for a new beginning." The drums echoed through the night, their rhythm mixing with laughter and song. Amina's heart was light. She looked at Kwame as he danced with the children, his face glowing with joy. The same people who once turned away from him were now clapping for him. As the moon rose higher, Nana Kwaku, the oldest elder, called for quiet. He raised his hand and said, "Let this day remind us all that truth, though painful, always brings peace. The young man has learned, and so must we. Let every heart remember, honesty keeps love alive." Everyone repeated his words together, "Honesty keeps love alive." After the celebration, Kwame and Amina sat by the fire outside Mama Abina's hut. The air was cool and calm. They watched the stars in silence for a while. Then Amina spoke softly. "You see, Kwame, the truth didn't destroy us after all. It brought us home." He smiled. "Yes, it brought us back to ourselves." She leaned her head on his shoulder. "I forgive you," she whispered. "Completely." Kwame closed his eyes, letting the words sink deep into his heart. He had made many mistakes, but he had learned the most important lesson: love without truth cannot survive. The next morning, as the sun rose over Nsakana, people went about their work with joy. The village had a new story to tell, one that would be passed from mouth to mouth for years. It was no longer the story of shame, but of forgiveness and redemption. Mothers told their daughters about Amina's courage. Fathers told their sons about Kwame's humility. Children laughed and repeated the story, saying, "Remember what Nana Kwaku said, honesty keeps love alive." Life moved on, but the lesson stayed. And for Kwame and Amina, their love grew stronger each day, built not on fear or pretense, but on truth. They often visited Mama Abina, who smiled whenever she saw them together. "You both remind me," she would say, "that even broken things can be made whole again, if the heart is true." The villagers never forgot that story. It became a quiet guide, a reminder that love, when tested, becomes stronger if it walks in the light of truth. And so, the couple who once hid behind lies became the example of honesty and forgiveness. Their laughter filled the village once more, their hearts free from shame. The story of Kwame and Amina was no longer one of foolish pride, but of redemption, proof that even after a mistake, love can find its way home.